Namaste friends, welcome you all for the biology session. This is Manjunath GS, MGS here. Let us discuss the continued part of the chapter breathing and exchange of gases. So we were discussing about the structure of human respiratory system. There we discussed how the passage will be and how the other structure will going to help in the transportation of gases. Right. So in this class, let us take the first, that is the structure of lungs, and then we can know about the respiratory volumes and capacities. And along with that, we can also know about a difference between inspiration and expiration, how exactly these two steps of the breathing will going to take place. So now first the lung. So lung, which is actually the exchange part, lungs, or we can say that exchange part, lungs or exchange part, where exactly it is a site of actual exchange of gases takes place, actual exchange by means of diffusion, that is we can say that actual diffusion of respiratory gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, between the blood and the alveoli, that is we can say that between the blood and the atmosphere, right? That is what from the alveoli it moves out. So between the, what is that, blood and atmosphere, between the blood and atmosphere, that is the exchange part. So capillary, alveolar capillary into the alveoli, and alveoli to the outside. So now what are those alveoli? These are the structural and functional unit of respiratory system. So the very thin, large number, very thin sac like structure with irregular walls, very thin irregular wall, and vascularized bag like structure, vascularized bag like structure, bag like structure. So these structures which play a major role in the, what is that, this is exchange of gases. So that is why we'll say structural and functional units of respiration, or you can say that respiratory system, respiration in human being, you can say respiratory system. So first lung structure, we can say that, right, rough diagram for that to understand this, how exactly this is the trachea which divides into, what is it, the two, what is it, the bronchus, that is bronchi, and bronchi which mainly, what is it, the enters into the lung surface. So this is the right lung, and this is the left lung, which is little narrower and present little downward, right? And this will be right lung, which will be little above, right, at its level, right? I will tell you why that is right and left lung. So here the lung, which is, both the lungs are covered by the pleura. What is that pleura exactly? So pleura, or you can say that the pleural membrane. Pleura is a double layered covering, double layered covering made up of two wall layers, or you can say that the made up of two membranes, double layered covering of lungs, right, double layered covering of lungs with two membranes. That is why it is a double walled sac like structure, two membranes. One is parietal pleura, and the second one is visceral pleura, parietal and visceral pleura, pleural membrane. Right, now what is that? The parietal pleura, so which covers the, it is the outer covering of the, just for rough diagram we can have it, this diagram both sides we can, this side also that will be right. So here that the pleura, outer parietal pleura which is in contact with, outer parietal pleura which is in contact with the thoracic cavity, that is parietal pleura is in contact with thoracic cavity, outer thoracic cavity, that is, so this is towards the thoracic cavity. And next the inner visceral layer which is remains attached with the lung surface. So inside, this is, what is it, the, this is the lung surface, right, so that is remains attached with the lung surface. So this is the visceral pleura, which is in attached with, right, so visceral, inner visceral pleura that is in contact with, what is it, or attached with the lung surface, attached with the lung surface. So outer parietal pleura is in contact with, or it is attached with the wall of the thoracic cavity, with the wall of the thoracic cavity, whereas here the visceral pleura which is in contact with lung surface internally, lung surface internally. Now the very important thing here you have to keep it in mind that this, the right lung is, if you want to take the difference between right and left lung, right lung is little bigger, and this is a little smaller, and this with 3 lobes, and this structure, that is the left lung, is with 2 lobes, and whenever there will be these lobes which will be there, how we can say that there are 3 lobes? Here there is a horizontal fissure, one horizontal fissure, and that is one oblique fissure. So horizontal fissure which divides the lungs into 2 lobes, whereas a oblique fissure which divides the lungs into totally 3 lobes. This is called as right superior, this is called as right superior, and this is called as, what is it, the middle lobe, and this one is called as inferior, right inferior. So there are 3 lobes, 1, 2, 3, and whereas this side only one fissure, that is an oblique fissure which divides the, what is it, the left lung into 2 lobes, that is superior and inferior. So this is left superior, and this one is, what is that, left inferior. So there are 3 lobes in the right lung, and there are 2 lobes in the left. So now in this, generally the lungs which will be there, the structure we can say that these names you have to keep it in mind. This is called as oblique fissure. Here both 3 lobes because of both horizontal fissure, both horizontal and oblique fissure. 2 fissure, here only one, that is oblique fissure, which divides the left lung into 2 lobes. So next, these lungs are, we know that they are the paired structure, right, and spongy, cone shaped, located in the thoracic cavity, right above the diaphragm. This is where we can say that the diaphragm, we can, so here is the diaphragm, on the diaphragm we are going to rest. Compared to the, what is it, the right, compared to the left lung, right lung is little bigger, and it is rise little above this part, which is rise little above. Generally we can say that the 2.5 centimeter, 2.5 centimeter, right, because of the in the right side to accommodate the liver. Here it is, we can say that this compared to this length, it is approximately 2.5 centimeter shorter than the right, 2.5 centimeter shorter than the left. So this is the broader. Here you can observe that this is broader, and here it is narrower. So this right lung is broader and shorter, that is shorter of about 2.5 centimeter in compared with the left lung, because of the raised position, because of this, what is it, the liver where it occupies, right, to accommodate the liver. Mainly, what is that, 2.5 centimeter shorter, where it is raised above, or you can say that they due to raised diaphragm which is going to push, because mainly to accommodate, right, so accommodate the liver. So this is the reason why it is little raised, or you can say that they raised above the diaphragm. I can say that in this side this is the lower than the, here you can say this, the diagram in this you can see this little upward and this is little downward. So that is, you have to keep it in mind. Only one, the fissure, that fissure is called as oblique fissure. And in this case, the very important thing here, you can observe that there is a cardiac notch. So this notch mainly to accommodate the heart. So heart where it will be going to situate. So that is why we can say that this side broader, shorter, and here longer. We can say that the narrower and longer. So that is the difference you have to keep it in mind, right? Next point, we can see this, how exactly the volumes will going to help, that is the respiratory volumes, right? So this respiratory organs are consisting of millions of the alveoli, where it will going to increase the the absorptive surface area. So absorptive surface area, which in turn we can say that better to say that the more surface area where it can store. Larger the surface area, larger the volume of air can be get exchanged. So that is why there are millions of the alveoli present seen in each the lung. Before going to the pulmonary volumes and capacities, let us know about just how exactly the inspiration and the expiration takes place. So inspiration means, which is also called as inhalation, and the expiration means exhalation. So in the previous class we mentioned that, right, inhalation and exhalation. So this is active process, we all know that, and this is the passive process where energy is not required, and this is the active process. And one more thing, the structures which are involved here, which are called as inspiratory muscles, make a note of this, is more important. The structures which are involved, that is inspiratory muscles, here expiratory muscles. Generally expiratory muscles, we can say that which helps in the forceful respiration, but here inspiratory muscles play a major role in both inspiration and expiration. So I'll come to that. These expiratory muscles, if we'll mention, they helps in forceful respiration. We'll take up that later, how these inspiratory muscles will help in both in inspiration and expiration. Let us take that. Inspiratory muscles mainly includes the external intercostal muscles, already we discussed what is the meaning of intercostal muscles, in between the ribs, and we can say that the muscular diaphragm. So these structures play a major role. Here, first thing, what it will going to happen, that the contraction of diaphragm, where the contraction takes place, that the with the help of phrenic muscles, so this diaphragm which will move, the downward due to the contraction, that which will be, the with the help of phrenic muscles which will move downward, so that anterior posterior chamber, you can say that antero-posterior chamber increases, antero-posterior chamber, or you can say that volume in that chamber increases. Same like that, the external intercostal muscles are also going to contract. External intercostal muscles, are also going to contract. The contraction of these external intercostal muscles, right, which is going to increase ventrolateral. So this external intercostal muscles, when they contract, increases the ventrolateral and also dorsoventral. You also say that dorsally and ventrally. Dorsoventral, the axis increases, the chamber increases. So when both these dorsoventrally and antero-posterior, the chamber increases, volume of thoracic cavity increases. So as we all know that the volume increases, pressure decreases, the intrapulmonary pressure decreases. So that is very important thing. Hence air move into the lungs. So here we can say negative the partial pressure, or you can say that the intrapulmonary pressure, right, IPP, play a major role, in the inspiration. Intrapulmonary pressure decreases due to increase in the volume of the thoracic cavity. Why it will going to increase? Due to contraction of both diaphragm and external intercostal muscles. You have to keep it in mind that this is because of the contraction. This is because of contraction of inspiratory muscles. This is because of relaxation of inspiratory muscles. When both the diaphragm and external intercostal muscles relax, all those structure will going to gain get back to their original position, so that those the antero-posterior chamber, right, antero-posterior chamber decreases, and then dorsoventral, right, or you can say that the dorsal to the ventral, from back side to the front, we can say towards the the face, right, or you can say that the where the chest cavity, we can say that is the ventral side, and back side where the lumbar, not lumbar, that is all those vertebral column, that is dorsal side. So dorsoventrally, all those will going to decrease, means they're going to get back to their the original position. Then the volume decreases. It is vice versa. When the volume decreases, generally pressure increases, air rushes out of the lungs. So this is what you have to keep it in mind. And centers, we discussed that there are mainly the two centers which will going to control or regulate the, mainly helps in the regulation of respiration. So what are those, the centers which will going to regulate the respiration? In case of regulation, just I will mention because of this, the question, we'll take that. So inspiration and expiration we finished, right? So that is forceful respiration, we won't have that generally. Just here we can say for the forceful respiration, expiratory muscles like internal intercostal muscles and the abdominal muscles play a major role. This is enough, right? So abdominal muscles, these structures will going to contract. But keep it in mind, inspiratory muscles, which includes external intercostal muscles and diaphragm. Both contracts during inspiration, both relax during expiration. So this you have to keep it in mind. Next, regulation of respiration. So here, how this respiration will be regulated? We'll say that generally there are three group of the respiratory centers. Those respiratory centers, which we can say respiratory rhythmic centers. So what are those respiratory rhythmic centers which will going to regulate? Generally we can say that the 12 to 16 times a person, the normal healthy adult person, 12 to 16 times per minute that will going to breathe. That is the respiratory rate. To maintain that respiratory rate, these respiratory centers will going to help. Our respiration 12 to 16 times ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ that is these the respiratory centers will going to play a major role. We know that the respiration is the process which is respiration process is involuntary. It is not voluntary. Voluntarily we can do that. So involuntary means respiratory centers. Where exactly that center is presented? That is situated in the present in medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata. And those three groups which are present here, one is dorsal respiratory center, or you can say that dorsal respiratory group, which will going to control the breathing, like inspiration and expiration. In this we can say generally maintain the normal breathing pattern. Normal breathing pattern. So normal breathing pattern is maintained by dorsal respiratory group. Same like that means both inspiration and expiration. And ventral respiratory group. In case of ventral respiratory group, it will going to helps in mainly to involve in enhancing, right, helps in the enhancement of that respiration, or you can say that the pattern. So helps in enhancement, or you can say that to enhance the rate of respiration. So enhancement, or you can say enhancement of respiratory rate. Next, so here mainly the enhance means you should keep it in mind that the forceful inspiration and expiration. Forceful inspiration and expiration. Forceful inspiration and expiration. So now here one more center, that is a third center, which is called as pneumotoxic center. Pneumotoxic center. Already we have discussed about this. This center will going to the present seen in pons varli, right, which will going to the mainly inhibits the the inspiration, where the external the atmosphere, or I can say atmospheric air, is the toxic. When it sends with more toxic, that will going to switch off the inspiration. Hence it is called as switch off the point of inspiration. Switch off point of inspiration. Switch off point of inspiration is pons varli. So there are three the respiratory centers: dorsal respiratory center, ventral respiratory center. Dorsal means normal breathing, ventral means forceful breathing, forceful inspiration and expiration, and the pneumotoxic center, that is a pons varli, which acts as a switch off point of inspiration. Switch off point of inspiration. So let us take one question related to this, right? So pneumotoxic and inhibitory centers are associated with. So pneumotoxic and inhibitory centers, right, means these pneumotoxic center itself will going to act as a inhibitory center, where it inhibits the rate of inspiration. So that is which will going to the center is associated with, here we can say respiratory rhythmic center. All these three together forms respiratory rhythmic center. Respiratory rhythmic center. Next, pneumotoxic and inhibitory center are associated with breathing. They helps in breathing. So one note to keep in mind, that whenever these centers will going to sense, mainly they have a capacity to sense increased condition of the carbon dioxide and H plus ion concentration. When it increases, You can say that they will come to that how it will be increased. So those will going to sense the carbon dioxide. There will be with the help of chemosensitive area. With the help of chemosensitive area. So let me add that point also here. There will be a chemosensitive area which is present in the receptors present in the the medulla oblongata, and also present seen in aortic arches and carotid artery. Chemosensitive area which are present in the aortic arches, and aortic arches means this, which the largest artery which is going to carry oxygenated blood to the body. Aortic arches and carotid artery, which will going to deliver the oxygenated blood to the brain. Carotid means which will going to the artery which delivers blood to brain. So that is carotid artery. So now let us take the next question. Here some questions which are in between, we have a different questions where the transport of oxygen which is to takes place. Generally we know that is the hemoglobin, the dissociation curve, or you can say hemoglobin oxygen dissociation curve. So this curve, which when the partial pressure of oxygen increases, that is the percentage saturation of the percentage saturation of hemoglobin with the oxygen increases. So if partial pressure increases, and this will going to increase, when it will going to maintain the level maintains, there it will going to this stop, and that reaches the 100% saturation, where we can say that is sigmoid curve. It gives this sigmoid curve. So this is the one important question, where the partial pressure of oxygen increases, percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen increases, right, up to where the no availability of hemoglobin, or you can say that the saturation level is reached. So there it will going to maintain sigmoid curve. Next, we'll take up that volumes later. So here related to the lungs we can take. So lungs are covered by, that is a pleura, where we can say that the pleural membranes are pleura, outer parietal, inner visceral. So lungs are enclosed, peritoneum, perichondrium, it is also wrong, right? So whenever these structures which will be there, generally which will going to cover the cartilaginous tissue, and the pericardium where it covers the heart, perichondrium, that is pericardium, and the pleural membrane, the one which covers the just now we discussed the double walled sac-like structure, that is the pleural membrane. So lungs are enclosed in pleural membrane. Next, diffusing capacity of the carbon dioxide compared to the the oxygen, means how much it will going to diffuse. So the carbon dioxide, the solubility or diffusing capacity will be 20 to 22 times will be more, or you can say 20 to 22% will be more than the oxygen. So affinity will be more towards the hemoglobin. I already mentioned carbon monoxide affinity is more than the carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide affinity is more than the oxygen. So the answer for this is 20 times the capacity of diffusing capacity of the carbon dioxide will be there. Next, maximum resistance of airways due to, see there you can say that we have a broader airways. If it is too the broad, right, there we can say that if less volume of air, it may create a problem. So if all these are medium sized, then definitely the resistance will be going to bronchi, right? Bronchi with in this case bronchi with high airflow velocity, because of the medium size, bronchi with high airflow velocity. airflow velocity will be there in the medium size than in the the large the tubes and the large tubes. Hence maximum resistance of airway is due to presence of bronchi, the bronchi which are medium sized airways. These are the medium sized airways. And next question, the amount of air inspired during normal breathing. So here we can take, that is the tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume. Just I will mention in the different, this slide here we can take, right? So what is that? We have the volumes and capacities, that is respiratory volumes and capacities. So respiratory volumes and capacities, these are very important. I think we are all familiar with this. So respiratory volumes, what is the meaning of that? The quantities of air, or I can say that the volume of air, what is it? The lungs can receive. First they are going to receive that, after that they are going to hold, temporarily receive, hold, and then they are going to expel out, right? First receive and then they are going to hold and then expel. That the quantities of air the lungs can receive, hold, or expel, that quantities which are called as respiratory volume. ಎಷ್ಟು ಏರ್ನ ತೊಗೊಳುತ್ತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಏರ್ನ ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಹಾಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಏರ್ನ ಹೊರ ಹಾಕುತ್ತೆ. That is through the process of the breathing, that is inspiration and expiration. So that is what we can say respiratory volume. And the capacity, you can say combination of two or more the volumes, combinations of two or more pulmonary volumes. Or you can say that the respiratory volumes, pulmonary volumes, anything we can say, combination of two or more pulmonary volumes, right, which will be call it as pulmonary capacities, right? So pulmonary or respiratory capacity, right? So first I will give the tidal volume. What is the meaning of the tidal volume? The amount of air, right, which will be inspired or expired during normal respiration. What is that? 500 ml. Sometimes they may also they give that is 0.5 liters, right? What is the tidal volume? Amount of air, it includes both amount of air inspired or expired during normal breathing. So normal breathing means what? It is involuntary. Normal breathing is involuntary, right? It is not voluntary. Voluntary we can take more. So that is what? The 500 ml. Tidal volume 500 ml. So that is what? The involuntary. Should keep it in mind. Tidal volume in short term we can represent as TV. Next, what is it? The expiratory reserve volume and inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume. So what is that? The volume of air, right, where the additional reserve volume ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಜನರಲ್ additional word use ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Additional volume of air, right? A person can inspire air. A person can inspire additional volume of air. A person can inspire. This is very, very important. By forcible inspiration, or you can say that over tidal volume, right? By forcible inspiration. So keep it in mind, right? One word where we can say that in volume of air inhaled over and above tidal volume. Simply we can say volume of air inhaled over and above tidal volume. Correct alva? So normal breathing adu. So normal breathing, right, ಆದಮೇಲೆ that is forcible breathing. Normal inspiration ಅದನ್ನು ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೇ forceful inspiration. Both involves a same process, but forceful we can say. Over normal inspiration, forcible inspiration. That is, we can say IRV 2500 very important, these volumes are 2500 to 3000 ml. So 3000 ml is the IRV. Same like that expiratory reserve volume. What is that expiratory reserve volume? Expiratory reserve volume is a volume of air, the additional volume of air a person can expire. What is that? Over and above, what is it? Expire, right? This is very important. A volume of air, or you can say additional volume of air a person can expire, what is that? Forcibly, right, above the normal expiration, forcible expiration. So over and above tidal volume, or you can say that expiration, that is, we can take this as additional volume of air, exhale, right? Additional volume of air a person can expire by a forcible expiration. So normal expiration ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫೋರ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಐ.ಆರ್.ವಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫೋರ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ತಗೋತಾನೆ ಅದು ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ ಐ.ಆರ್.ವಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಫೋರ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ನ ಹೊರ ಹಾಕ್ತಾನೆ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ expiratory reserve volume. So here this is very important, that is 1100. We can say that an average we can say 1100, that is 1000 to 1100 ml is the volume, right? And the last one here we have, that is the residual volume, RV. So in this we can expect a question. So residual volume, the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after forcible expiration. Air remaining in the lungs even after forcible expiration, what is that? Forcible expiration ಆದಮೇಲೂ ಲಂಗ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದು ರೆಸಿಡಿಯಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ 1100 to 1200 ml. Keep it in mind, these are the volumes are very important. Let me repeat once again. Tidal volume 500 ml, IRV 2500 to 3000 ml, ERV 1000 to 1100 ml, and then the residual volume 1100 to 1200 volume. Let us take some questions related to this, right? As we all discussed about what is the volumes, and later we can take that capacities. So amount of the air inspired or expired means it includes both inspiration and expiration, means it is a normal respiration. Normal respiration means it is involuntary. Keep it in mind, that is a normal breathing. Okay, how much that is what we can say tidal volume. Tidal volume is 500 ml. Tidal volume is what is it, 500 ml, or I mentioned there 0.5 to 1 liters. And the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolar air is about. So whenever we are going to say this, the air which will move from one place to the other place. So keep it in mind, if it is a lung and lung to the capillary, if it is moving and atmosphere into the from the atmosphere, right, into the lungs, right, or you can say from lungs to the atmosphere, if it has to move, it depends on the partial pressure of gases. Partial pressure of what is it? Respiratory gases. So in what is it, the generally outside there will be 159 what is it, the mm of Hg of oxygen in the atmosphere. So oxygen, that is the partial pressure is 159 mm Hg in the atmosphere, whereas the carbon dioxide, what is it, the partial pressure of carbon, you can say that PO2 can be represented as to represent the partial pressure of oxygen, and then PCO2 to represent the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So this is in the atmosphere 0.3 mmHg. Hence always the oxygen will move into the lungs. Hence always the oxygen which will going to move into the lungs because of those changes also, and hence the carbon dioxide which will going to move out of the lungs. So this is very, very important. So what is the answer here? We can say that 150, and it is enter into the lungs. So partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolar air. So as in what is the, and when we can compare that, here outside it is 159, here will be 104 to 105 what is that mm of Hg in the lungs. The partial pressure of what is it, the oxygen in the lungs is 10 what is it, the 4, or I can say 100 to 104 mmHg will be there. So that is 101 approximately. So this is the reason where that will going to exchange. So according to our NCRT, that is 104, but that will be from 101 to 104, we can say, right? 101 to 104, right? Next question. A person ascends means will move to the higher altitude, 12,000 feet. So when we move from lower altitude to higher altitude, volume increases. As the volume increases, what is that? The pressure decreases. The pressure will be less. Pressure decreases. So breathing, what is it? The rate should increase, and it is very difficult to breathe. That is what we can say altitude sickness. Altitude sickness, that is develops acute what is it, breathlessness. This is due to, so what happens in this case, that whenever the more what is it, the water which will be moved to the more the air which will be there, I can say that the pressure inside the lungs will be more. In this case, inside the lungs the pressure is compared to this the atmospheric pressure, inside the lungs it is high pressure. Hence it is very difficult to take against that high pressure. So that is why we are going to feel that what is it, breathlessness. So here the mainly this is due to what is it, the decrease in the pulmonary blood flow. No, that is carbon dioxide wash out, right? So if this breathlessness which will be there, that means more carbon dioxide will be inside and the less oxygen availability. So that makes what is it, the reverse pressure, right? So carbon dioxide which will be more, that will going to make, that is what we can say breathlessness is mainly because of the carbon dioxide washout. So here the carbon dioxide washout, where we'll say that when the person will move, generally the oxygen concentration decreases, where the condition called as hypoxia, less availability of oxygen will be there. But inside the pressure, where in the inside the body more carbon dioxide increases. So this is the very important thing, and there will be the adjustment of the body, what is it, the mechanisms. So respiratory rate increases during this time. Respiratory rate increases, I can say that the breathing rate increases. Along with that, RBC's count increases. RBC's count, red blood cells count increases, and along with that the affinity decreases. Affinity of hemoglobin decreases. This to compensate that altitude sickness. Now generally when we move from lower altitude to higher altitude, we feel that giddiness, nausea, right, heart palpitation, right, vomiting sensation. No, that is because of this region, that is the carbon dioxide which will be more will going to produce. So that to compensate that, we should breathe more, but outside the oxygen is less. So that is what the pressure difference, outside should be more, inside should be less, but there will be a difference that makes breathlessness. Next, vital capacity is what is the measure of, so what is that, we can say vital capacity. Now we can take that capacities. Before going to that, let me give what is it, the related to the capacities. So whenever we're going to say that the capacity is the combination of two or more volumes. So this is very important. Capacities, one is inspiratory capacity, that is tidal volume plus IRV. Right, when we're going to add this, generally we're going to get the 5000 to what is that, the IRV 2500 to what is that, 3000. So if you're going to what is it, add this, generally we're going to get 3000 to 3500 ml. So we can calculate this easily. So what is the total amount of air inspired after normal expiration? So illenagutte expiration aadmele, after normal expiration, the total we'll use a word, total volume of air inspired. Total volume of, you won't say additional because it is not reserved. Total volume of air inspired after normal expiration. Same like that, what is that, expiratory capacity. So total volume of air, that is after normal, what is that, the inspiration, after normal inspiration, the total volume of air expired, that is expiratory capacity. ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೊರ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಏರ್ನ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಇದೆರಡು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಡಿಷ್ನಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ forcibly inspired over normal inspiration, after normal inspiration. ಎರಡು ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ನೇ, ಒಂದು ಫೋರ್ಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್, ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ expiration, right? So after expiration, that is inspiration. Here after normal inspiration, that is expiration. That is the difference you should keep in mind. So and the things here like FRC, functional residual capacity. So that here we can say that the formula we can write for EC, TV plus ERV. TV plus ERV, we can calculate that and we can obtain 1500 to 1600. We know that the volume, right? That is 1000 to 1100 ml, that is ERV. Right, so what is that FRC? FRC is RV plus ERV. So what is that generally FRC? Functional residual capacity. Total volume of air. See, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ನಾವು ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ which remains in the lungs after normal expiration. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ವಿ after forceful expiration, that is what is that, residual capacity. Residual capacity ಅಂದರೆ lungs, which will inside the lungs, the air which will be what is it, the remains after the what is that, forceful expiration. Very very important, forceful expiration. In all those we'll say IRV ನಲ್ಲೂ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ಬಲ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ERV ನಲ್ಲೂ ಫೋರ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, RC ರೆಸಿಡ್ಯೂಲ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲೂ ಫೋರ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ವೆರಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟೀಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲಂಗ್ remain in the lungs after normal expiration. The total volume of air which remains in the lungs after normal expiration. So that is what FRC. FRC can be easily calculated. RV, that is residual volume, we know that. What is that? 1100 to 1200 ml. That is the what is it? The residual volume. For that, the plus we can say that what is it? ERV, here only we have 1100 to. So if you're going to calculate that, we're going to get FRC, that something around 2100 to 2300 ml. So make sure that these are very important, keep it in mind. And the last one, vital capacity, which includes tidal volume plus IRV plus ERV. So this is what the tidal volume. If you want to calculate that, the vital capacity, which will be around 4000 to 4600. Ella add ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ಸ್ನ. So that is 4000 to 4600. What is that? Volume. So this vital capacity will be more in athletes. vital capacity which will be more in the athletes and mountain dwellers. Mountaineers andre those who live generally, that is a mountain dwellers. Athletes and mountain dwellers. Mountain dwellers andre those who live in the hilly region, who lives in the hilly region. ಹಾಗೆ ಮೌಂಟೇನಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಟ್ರೆಕ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಕ್ಲೈಂಬ್, ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸೇ ದಟ್ ದಿ ಕ್ಲೈಂಬರ್ಸ್. ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ climbers. That is what you have to keep it in mind. So now let us take next question. Vital capacity is the measure of what? So vital capacity is the measure of what is that? Just now we wrote that is Vc is equal to Tv plus IRV plus ERV. So what is the answer? No, not the measure of tidal volume. Inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume. Inspiratory, expiratory, but here there is no tidal volume. Tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume. So that is the answer. So third one, vital capacity is the measure of tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume. So here you should keep it in mind. These are what are the additional volume of air inspired over normal inspiration by forcibly, what is it, where additional volume of air which will be taken over normal inspiration, and here over normal expiration, forcible expiration, that is ERV, right? So whenever we are going to say that IC and EC, repeat many number of times, that is what is it, the inspiratory capacity, the total amount of air inspired after normal inspired, total volume of air inspired after normal expiration, after normal, keep it in mind, ಇದನ್ನು ಗಮನ ಕೊಡಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಈಸಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೈರ್ಡ್ ದ ಟೋಟಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಟೋಟಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ, ಅಡಿಷ್ನಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ IRV ERVನಲ್ಲಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇ ಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೈರ್ಡ್, ಇ ಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೈರ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಹಾಗೆ FRCನಲ್ಲೂ ಹಾಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಟೋಟಲ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಏರ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ರಿಮೈನ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್, ಗಮನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಇದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಆಗೋ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಇದೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್. ನೋ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ that is FRC. RV, residual volume, that is reserve volume, we can also say that is an expiratory reserve volume. So this is FRC. So you can calculate that easily. Effort during normal respiration is done due to, so what efforts will be there generally? So what is the thing which is going to take place, change in the body, which helps in, so as I have mentioned that if there is a, what is that, compared to what is it, the outside, inside there will be less. That is what we can say, if there is a less partial pressure, what is that, of air, whenever there is the less partial pressure which makes the movement easy, where we are going to create that due to the, what is it, the inspiratory muscles, right? So inspiratory muscles will going to create that changes, right? Volume will be increased. As the volume increases, pressure decreases, right? So because of the contraction of the diaphragm, and external intercostal muscles, keep it in mind, contraction of diaphragm and external intercostal muscles which creates what is it, negative pleural pressure. Means inside that the lung, where we can say that the lung surface which will be there, right, in between, that is, let me mention, that is very important, the parietal and visceral layer, right? So in between these two layers there is a cavity called as pleural cavity, and also in that cavity and in the lung surface, where the pressure decreases. So that makes, what is that, creating negative pleural pressure. Effort during normal respiration is done due to, right? So that effort, what and all the changes will going to take place, that is due to creating negative pleural pressure. Right. Next, iron in the hemoglobin is held by. So generally we know that that is the heme group. So Fe2 plus, right, the attachment, right, mainly we can say that the attachment with what is it, the covalent bond, with covalent bond. What is that mainly? What is that attachment will be there? That is, we can say porpyrol, or you can say porphyrin molecule, porphyrin or porpyrol, right? So porphyrin, to the porphyrin molecule, this, what is it, the iron content will be, the iron molecule will be attached with the help of covalent bond, with the help of covalent bond. So generally you can say that, sorry, that is coordinate bond, not covalent bond. That is with the help of, what is it, the coordinate bond, right? That is not covalent bond, that is in the hydrogen bond, or you can say that the, here you can say that coordinate bond, coordinate bond which is present between Fe2 plus and the porphyrin ring. We know that generally there is a heme group. Heme group is made up of porpyrol ring, that is a tetraporpyrol. Not required, just I'm mentioning that tetra, 4 porpyrol ring will be there, and that each porpyrol ring, right, if you consider that, what is it, the porpyrol ring, and each will be with, what is it, the one iron molecule. So these each, there are 4 iron molecule which can carry 4 oxygen molecules, right? So the, this will be with, what is it, the, this is, what is it, the tetraporpyrol ring, and that to which the iron molecules are attached, and each, what is it, the heme group can carry 1 oxygen molecule, so that 1 hemoglobin can carry 4 oxygen molecules, 4 oxygen molecules, right? So here answer is, right, that is coordinate bond, coordinate bond. Next, the structure which does not contribute to the breathing movement in mammals. Breathing movement ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರೋ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಯಾವುದು, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ larynx, ribs. Ribs is going to contract, that is what we can say external intercostal muscles, and diaphragm, that is also going to contract during inspiration, and then relax during, both will going to relax during expiration. That will going to create, what is that, changes intrapulmonary pressure. When it is more than, intrapulmonary pressure is more inside, intra means inside the lungs. If it is more than the atmospheric, what is that, the air pressure, atmospheric air pressure, then intrapulmonary pressure is more, that expiration will going to take place. When the intrapulmonary pressure is less than the, what is it, the atmospheric air pressure, very very important, atmospheric air pressure, ಆವಾಗ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ವಿದಿನ್ ದಿ ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಇನ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದಿನ್ ದಿ ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಪಲ್ಮನರಿ ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಕೀಪ್ ಇಟ್ ಇನ್ ಮೈಂಡ್. ಸೊ ರಿಬ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್, and then diaphragm will going to involve, intercostal muscles will going to involve, but whereas larynx, what is that, won't involved in, what is that, structure which won't contribute to breathing movement. It is a respiratory structure, but for those changes, that is for those breathing movements, it won't contribute. Next, which one is false, right? So blood from right side of the heart is carried to the lungs by pulmonary artery. That is, we can say that correct, right? In the circulation chapter we can discuss, that is this is the right auricle and this is the left auricle and this is right ventricle, left ventricle. From the left ventricle, sorry, right ventricle, this deoxygenated blood from the pulmonary artery, which will going to reach us, the artery exception, which carry, what is that, deoxygenated blood to the lungs for the both, what is it, the lungs. That is why it divides into two, right? And then from to the left auricle, here we can say that oxygenated blood will going to reach left auricle to the left ventricle from the aorta, which will going to reaches the all other parts. This is the largest, what is it, artery, that is aorta. From the aorta, oxygenated blood will be supplied to all parts of the body. That is correct. Right side always receives deoxygenated blood, left side always receives oxygenated blood. Scurvy is due to vitamin C deficiency. We discussed that in the digestion chapter. That is also correct. And then pancreas, both exocrine and endocrine, that is also we discussed. That is the compound or heterocrine gland, alva, compound or heterocrine gland. Hage pleura, just now we discussed, that is the double, what is it, the membrane, or you can say double walled membrane sac like structure which covers the lungs. That is kidney they are given, so that is the wrong answer. That is the wrong answer. In 34 question, accumulation of fluid between the, what is it, the pleura is called as, so that is what we can say, that is the pleura, right? That this cavity is called as, there will be a cavity called as pleural cavity, which is filled with pleural fluid. So this pleural fluid acts as a lubricant. It acts as a lubricant and helps in lubrication, and along with that it also, what is it, the avoids the, what is it, the friction between two, what is it, the layers, that is a parietal pleura and visceral pleura when movement takes place. So if you consider this is the, what is it, the parietal pleura, and outside which is the, sorry, outside parietal pleura, and this is the parietal pleura, and here it is the visceral pleura. So where the movement, breathing movement takes place, here the friction may exist. To avoid that, this, what is it, the fluid will going to help the lungs. So along with that it acts as, what is it, this shock absorber or mechanical absorber. And also, so two important things here. One, it acts as a lubricant, right? That is a pleural fluid acts as a lubricant, and it will going to resist the mechanical shocks, right? Mechanical shocks, and along with that it will going to, what is it, they hold two membranes together. It holds two membranes together. So that is the major role of the pleural membrane along with a pleural cavity. So that is the answer. That is where the fluid accumulation, right? I can say that the accumulation of fluid between the pleura, right, that is called as pleuricy, right? So we'll discuss that pneumonia, bronchitis and asthma in case of, what is it, the disorders, right? These are the disorders, right? So asthma, that is inflammation of bronchi and trachea, right? Bronchi and, what is it, the tracheoles, or you can say that the trachea, where that inflammation due to infection. And bronchitis also, that is the spasm because of the inflammation. And the pneumonia, that is mainly streptococcus pneumoniae, which causes the infection. Next, glottis is an opening in the floor of, where it opens, that is in the floor of, they are asking, that not in the, what is it, the I can say that the generally will mention like this, that is the top region, that is anterior and posterior, that is from the floor, means this pharynx which opens, that is we can say the glottis is an opening in a floor of, where exactly it is situated as a floor, that is we can say here the glottis, and this region is the pharynx, right? And this is the roof, and this is the floor. So where exactly it is there? That is there in the pharynx, right? So in the floor of the pharynx we can see this. Faster breathing in high fever is due to, faster breathing in high, what is it, the fever is mainly due to, That is, when the temperature increases, keep it in mind, temperature increases, respiratory rate increases. Respiratory rate increases. So that is what you can say. Additional requirement of oxygen for the invader germs, that is the infectious or causative agent, right? No, it is not based on requirement. We won't provide that. So they have to derive it, right? Because our body will be going to, so the fight against that high temperature of the body, right? So faster the breathing, high temperature. Mental worry of patient, no. Loss of appetite, no. Right. Next, breathing rate in mammals is controlled by a part of brain. That is what a breathing rate, we can say that the respiratory rate by respiratory rhythmic center. Respiratory rhythmic center present seen in medulla oblongata. This hypothalamus and thalamus, that we're going to study in the neural control and coordination, where this, we can say, majority of the function will be done by this hypothalamus. One such example, right, we can say this will going to release mainly ADH. In case of excretory system, we're going to study that, right, mainly to release ADH or vasopressin. It stimulates the lower pituitary, that is a posterior pituitary. So posterior pituitary is stimulated by hypothalamus to release ADH, and that will going to helps in the reabsorption of water. We can study that in the reabsorption of water, that is excretion. So breathing or respiratory rhythmic center is medulla oblongata. And one more thing, cerebral cortex, keep it in mind, medulla oblongata, which controls the involuntary respiration. That means normal breathing. Same like that, cerebral cortex, which controls the voluntary breathing. ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ನಾವೇನು ಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನೇನಾದರೂ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಾಲಂಟ್ರಿ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಸೆರೆಬ್ರಲ್ ಕಾರ್ಟೆಕ್ಸ್. ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್ ಮಲಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ಅಥವಾ ಬೇರೆ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಮೆಡುಲ್ಲಾ ಅಬ್ಲಾಂಗೇಟಾ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅಫೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ. ಸೊ ರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್, ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಅಫೆಕ್ಟ್, there we can say that if the increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the body, right, inside the body, if it increases, so concentration of carbon dioxide, right, if it is more and more, the respiratory rate. If it is decreased, the carbon dioxide concentration, less respiratory rate. Means where the metabolism will be less, we're going to respire less, right? So more carbon dioxide means more metabolism, so that more breathing rate. So that is 38, rate of breathing is directly affected by concentration of carbon dioxide, right? So no role of, actually, that is the concentration of oxygen, right? Next question, 39, during the forced expiration, actively contracting muscles. Forced expiration means I mentioned that expiratory muscles, ಅದನ್ನು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪಿರೇಟರಿ ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಕಾಸ್ಟಲ್ ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಅಬ್ಡೋಮಿನಲ್ ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ಗಳು. ಅಬ್ಡೋಮಿನಲ್ ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ಲೇ ಅ ರೋಲ್ ಇನ್ ದಟ್. ಯಾವ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತವೆ ಜನರಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಅಬ್ಡೋಮಿನಲ್ ಮಸಲ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ಲೇ ಅ ಮೇಜರ್ ರೋಲ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ಫುಲ್ inspiration. These are diaphragm and external intercostal muscles during normal breathing. So these questions, normal breathing, these questions can be expected, right? So breathing rate is lowest while playing tennis. This tennis, it increases. Delivering order means when we're going to give some talk, ಯಾರಿಗಾದ್ರೂ ನೀವೇನಾದರೂ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಅಥವಾ ಇದು ಈ ರೀತಿಯೂ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಈ ಝೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ ಅದು ಇದು ಏನೋ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡೆಲಿವರಿಂಗ್ ದಿ ಆರ್ಡರ್ಸ್. ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಎರಡು ರೀತಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಸಪ್ಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಗೂಡ್ಸ್, ಹಾಗೆ ದಿ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಟು ದಿ ಎಂಪ್ಲಾಯಿ. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಬೇಕು ಮೋರ್ ಬ್ರೀದಿಂಗ್, ರೈಟ್, ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್. ಸೊ ಈಟಿಂಗ್, ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್, ವೆರಾಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಲೀಪಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಲೆಸ್. So we'll continue next question in the next part, right? So thank you.